Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are. Hosted by Desiree Duffy.
Welcome to Books That Make You. I am your host, Desiree Duffy, and today we're talking about books that make you find your purpose while in your pajamas. Yeah, we've been through months under lockdown and social distancing, and so many of us are wondering what our purpose truly is. This is really a time for some heavy-duty self-reflecting, and maybe we can turn this around for the positive. I mean, what better time is there to find your purpose than right now? And you get to do it while wearing your pajamas. And I don't know about you, but right now I'm wearing a nice shirt. And trust me, there's yoga pants underneath this. And that means that we have more time to be productive and we can be comfortable and relaxed. And that's why I'm so excited to bring our guest in today. Her name is Genevieve Piturro, and she is the founder of the very successful nonprofit Pajama Program. And she's also the author of the new book, Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas: How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning. Now, the book is her story of how she basically took one of those leaps of faith we hear about, jumping off of the corporate ladder to find her own true calling. She quit a very successful TV marketing job at the age of 38. So I guess she did that, like 3 years ago? Is that right? To start her own grassroots nonprofit from the ground up. A little girl asked her, what are pajamas? And that was the interesting catalyst to that. And we'll ask her about that in a little bit. She has since spent the last 20 years growing the Pajama Program to 63 chapters across the country, and now works as a motivational speaker and mentor to those who are looking for the courage and the human connection needed to pursue their own passions. Woo, Genevieve Piturro, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Desiree. So nice to be with you.
Oh, this is exciting. And you're right. When we popped on, we saw we were both blondes wearing red. So this was not planned in advance. But I think it's so great. Sometimes people just seem like they're on a wavelength. There's something. This happens to me so much. It used to happen when we could go out and do those things called lunches and brunches.
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
Remember those? I would meet a friend out and we'd be wearing practically the same colors. It just happens sometimes. And I feel like right now, at this moment in time, yes, we're locked up. It's hard. We're experiencing some stress and sometimes boredom. Sometimes we don't know what the future holds. But ultimately, this might be a good time for us to find our purpose. Do you want to talk about that and how you feel about finding our purpose nowadays with everything that's going on?
Yes, you're right. It is a good time. I was finding mine before the pandemic, before the quarantine, but this is a good time. If I had known, maybe I would have waited. But it is a time because I think after the first few weeks of shock, and not that we're not still in shock, but I think what happened naturally for everyone being home for the most part for weeks is we naturally started to think about our lives, whether we're 30 the last 20 years or whether we're 60 in the last 30 years. I think it just automatically started to come to the surface. Where am I today? What's my situation like right now in this crazy time? The world's upside down. And I think you automatically start thinking about the path you took. And was it the right path? And was there something I should have done? Is there maybe a chance for a do-over, to change lanes? And talking to people, it seems like it just naturally came upon us at this time, which is fascinating. And, there's some synchronicity in the world. So, I'm hoping that people are thinking about what they're meant to do, and maybe they didn't do it for whatever reason.
And I'm drawn to the allegory of the phoenix. Sometimes out of things that are really, really bad comes a new beginning. And I feel that's happening for so many people, especially those who might have a creative bent or an entrepreneurial bent. I work with lots of writers, so I see so many people who are like, I'm finally finishing that manuscript. Yes. Same thing with art. I know people who are starting, a whole online art adventure and starting their own businesses. So I do think that right now it gives us that opportunity. And I know one of the things that you talk about in your book is the human connection. So let's talk about that, because we're connected in new ways. I don't think the connection has gone away. It's just changed, right?
Right. I think we so miss being face to face. We really took it for granted, didn't we? Who would have ever thought that would be something that we would be forbidden to do? Our loved ones, our seniors, our parents, grandparents, our children, unless you live with the people that you're quarantined with, the rest are off limits physically. And that was hard for me. My mom's in a senior residence. I can't see her. She's 85. I'm not the only one who has a mom or a grandma that, we miss hugging. And that's a shock. So I think we were so hungry that although this seems so foreign, and a year ago people would have said, hey, let's meet up virtually, let's have a meeting this way, have cocktails over the computer if we can't be with each other, we wouldn't have even thought it was something we'd want to do, And now we're starved for this. And the human connection in any form, looking in each other's eyes, I can see your eyes, you can see my eyes, it's not as good, but I think we're just so hungry for it that it makes us connect in such an intimate way that we're not taking it for granted right now. And that human connection is so strong. When I started Pajama Program 23 years ago, before we became a 501c3, I was just volunteering myself around for 3 years. All I had was my story. We didn't even have social media. We had the email, but it wasn't as easy to communicate in other ways back then. And all I could do was get in front of people and tell them my story. And here we are, 23 years later, in quarantine, in the pandemic, telling each other our stories.
And isn't that the core of it all? Underneath everything, it's our stories. That's actually one of our mottos. We believe in storytellers because since, way back before we were even recording history, right? We were sitting around the fire telling stories. It's how we communicated myths, legend, religion, history of our people, of our families. And I think that's really the core to it. And one of the things that I want to ask you about is I do want your story of that little girl. But first, can we talk about you as a leader? Because leadership, I feel like, is a big component of this. How do we lead during these times? Especially if we can't be in person. If you are starting a company, how do you lead if you can't talk to your potential clients or people face to face?
Yeah, it's a little different now, and it's going to be a little different moving forward. And I've been so curious about that, and I've asked a million people along the way in the last 4 or 5 months, and it seems it's a much more compassionate way of leadership, much more empathy, much more patient, because we need to know where each other is right now. I want to know your story. I want to know how you're doing. I want you to know what the goals are. I want you to be a part of my team, and I want you to know I'm going to rally for you. And leaders are listening a lot more than talking these days. I grew up in a corporate job where I took orders. Leaders spoke, and maybe I was asked for my opinion, but I don't know if it really mattered. And that's what I expected. I expected it to be that kind of an employer-employee relationship, and not so much now. Because we are all expecting so much more from each other. We're expecting to be asked, what's going on and how are you? Because you don't know, right? We don't know what's going on with you, what's happened in the last 4 months, and that affects everything. Bosses can't be best friends with everybody, clearly, but certainly can be there, be honest, get people's trust, make it a two-way street.
Ooh, absolutely. So tell us, you had a moment where a little girl came up and asked you a question, and it feels like that was a pivotal moment in time for you. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to, Desiree. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I wanted to be Mary Tyler Moore my whole growing up life. I'd sneak down and watch her at night. And I wanted to be a successful woman, businesswoman. I wanted to be in TV news. I wanted to live in a big city, and for me, that was New York. I wanted my own apartment and friends, and of course, I wanted that wardrobe. She had a great wardrobe. and being the first of 4 kids in an Italian family, I think they wanted grandchildren. I think my parents wanted me to get married and have kids, and that just wasn't my path. I wanted, straight up to the corporate ladder, and I was on my way, and I was loving it. I'm not going to say I wasn't. I was loving it. One day, in my living room, I heard a voice, and it didn't come from here, because I hear those voices all the time. You probably do too. We all do, right? We ignore most of them. But it came from here. It came from what I now call my heart voice. And it asked me a question. If this is the next 30 years of your life, is it enough? Desiree, first I looked around because it really spooked me. It really did. I was going so fast. I was really shaken up by that. I sat down and, instantly I answered myself and I said, no. I looked around. I said, I'm alone. And I'll be alone. And what do I have to show for it? And it was just an incredible moment.
That honesty that we can have with ourselves, I think that's important, because we do. I'm sure you enjoyed, like you said, climbing that corporate ladder. I did it too. It was a challenge, right? Mm-hmm. It was a game. You played it and you had fun playing that game. Right. But it's kind of like when you stand up and you say, I'm not playing this game of Monopoly anymore. And you realize that's not all there is. And so what do you say to people, though? Because it's so hard to take that leap of faith. What do you say to people who ask, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? What if my idea sucks? What do you say to them?
I ask myself the same questions. I still do. This is my book. I ask the same questions. What am I doing? What do I think? Oh my goodness, please somebody read it. I mean, that's sadly where we go, right? In our minds. If you think about it for too long, you're going to talk yourself out of it. I went the other way. I didn't think about it. I had a succession of events that I believed I was going to follow. After I heard that voice, let me tell you, nothing else could have been weirder. So every time I got a sign, I followed, because it made me feel so good in here, and I hadn't felt that way. And I just trusted, one step at a time. I'll figure it out one step at a time. I kept telling myself, you're not a dummy. you're not a dummy. And you have a mouth and you can ask questions. Don't be afraid. Of course, I was afraid to ask questions because I knew nothing about starting a nonprofit. I didn't even know I was going to start a nonprofit. All I wanted to do was find a way to bring pajamas to these children. When I had that question asked of me, I started to think, what am I missing? And Desiree, this all happened in minutes. That's how I know that it came from another place, that it came from inside me, that it was just waiting to surface. Because the first thing I thought was, I didn't have children. And I don't think at this point in my life, it's going to happen. Even if I ran out and, found somebody, which I did shortly later. But in that moment, I said, there are children in shelters, because I watched the news. We all read the papers. And I literally started calling shelters that week and the police stations who told me where to go. And when I went to read in shelters and I saw how they were sleeping, that's when I just couldn't stop thinking about the bedtime versus my bedtime with my mom. And I write about it in the story, in the book. It was just so full of love. And I didn't know then that she was really giving me comfort and security for my whole life moving forward in that bedtime ritual. And these kids, they were huddled onto futons together, sleeping in their clothes. And I brought pajamas the next week. I asked them, and I remember as I said, can I bring pajamas next week? The other side of my brain was saying, what a dumb question. Why did you even ask that? I was so embarrassed. And I said, sure, that'd be lovely. And I did. And I started to hand them out. And one little girl just shook her head. She didn't want them. She was afraid. And she wanted to watch me give them to the other kids. And finally, she wouldn't go into the bedroom until I went over to say, good night. And I tried one more time to give her the pajamas. And that's when she asked me, what are they? What are pajamas?
Oh.
So I couldn't think about the corporate world. And that's, even though there are plans to be made, budgets, you have to think about so many practical things. My heart went first and my brain's had to catch up.
And so tell us then, how does the Pajama Program work? Tell us all about it.
The way I started it was simply bringing new pajamas and new books to children in shelters in my backyard, in my town at Yonkers, in New York City where I worked. And I just wanted them to have that bedtime. Just wanted them to have those soft pajamas and get out of those clothes that were they'd worn for days and were soiled and too tight. How could they sleep? I just wanted them to have soft pajamas just for them, brand new, and a storybook. I'd read a story at the shelter, and I wanted them to pick a storybook to hold on to in bed. And that niche was all I could handle. And for all these years, it's pajamas and books. Now, I wanted to write the story and speak about that connection, how that little girl touches us, because we feel how lonely and afraid she was sometimes too. And that's why I think everybody I told got it, felt a glimmer of what I felt. We have to do something. We have to comfort these children. So I asked our board if I could leave the executive director job and hire somebody, and I would remove myself and just do the book and tell our story. And so we have a new executive director, and she's been great, not so new, 3 years. And it's evolving into just getting the bedtime ritual to be what really helps children have a good night for a good day. So it's the bedtime that everybody has a story about, whether they have their kids or they remember being a child and having their mom or dad tuck them in. That is so precious. That bonding is so precious.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So hold up your book again. And if you don't mind, tell us about the book. Who should read your book? Let's start there. Who do you recommend should read your book?
Well, anybody who is considering if it's too late to make a change, and it is not too late to make a change. It's never too late. And I talk about, I jumped off the corporate ladder. You don't have to. You can, I say, slide something into your life. But whatever is calling, whatever you love that you're putting on the back burner for whatever reason, you've got to give it a voice. You've got to embrace it, even in a small way, because that will change everything. That will fill your heart. And you know what? It has an effect on everybody in your life. It's just amazing. And I learned so many leadership skills. I learned about human connection. I learned how different it is when you are working with people for the common good. You don't have to start a charity, but you have to be contributing something, right? Mm-hmm. Something to society, and you have to do it together. And you have to find some way to transform yourself. Everybody on the team does, into being a little bit better every day.
And you offer a master class as well. Is that right? You want to talk about that a little?
Yeah. It's so funny because before the quarantine, I was speaking in person about different things, certainly telling the story and talking about the leadership skills, talking about the human connection and what a difference it is when you listen to your heart voice and how to lead with meaning as opposed to lead the way, my bosses led when I was in the corporate world. And then the pandemic hit, and then the quarantine hit. And I said, let me take this to the screen. Everybody is home. Let's see if there's some way I can translate the stand up in front of a live audience presentation to the screen. And I did 10 on different topics that I mentioned. So it's been incredible to work with people who are so present. Everybody's so present when you're talking about maybe changing your life, maybe listening to what you've wanted to do. Maybe it is time.
What are some of the steps that people can take if, they don't want to take that leap? like you just said, they're going to take the slide.
A lot of people do that. That's great. That's great.
So what are some of the beginning things that you would suggest to somebody to get started?
Get a piece of paper and a pen and write down 5 things that you love to do, regardless of you think you can make money or not. 5 things, whether it's visiting seniors, whether it's horseback riding, taking dogs for a walk, write down the 5 things. Look at the 5 things. 3 will pop out. Guaranteed. 3. Circle those 3. Walk away. 2 days later, come back to those 3 and pick 2. And each one for 1 week, do as much as you can to learn more about what it is in that area that you might enjoy adding to your life. That includes connecting with people. And this has been an incredible time to connect with people in any field. People are willing to talk and connect like never before. So spend 1 week on each of those 2 and learn about what it takes to make that a career, if you're considering that, or learn about the different ways that might be options for you to include it in your life. And after you do that for a week with 2, pick one and introduce a little bit of some of the things that you most enjoyed about what people said that would fill up that job or that aspect of a career that you might consider. And see how it makes you feel over the first week and the second week. See how that makes what you think about it. How does it add to your life if you've only done a slide and a leap? How does it feel to do that after or before on the weekends if you keep your real job? How does everybody else react to you in your life? And I bet you'll find some pretty eye-opening insights into you and into your relationship with other people. And
I have to imagine too that, it's fine if you want to take the slide. It's fine if you want to take the leap. Yeah. There are some people right now that are being pushed over the edge. Mm-hmm. What do you have to say for people who are like, I don't have a job. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make ends meet? Because the scary thing right now is there are some people who aren't making as much money. And when you have that stress, when you're taking on all of that, that affects how you might or could be doing something like this, because you have to decide, well, someone might say, well, yeah, it's great to follow my passion, but I have to put food on the table. So what would you like to say to that person? Well, the first thing is to have peace of mind, right? So to find a job, to pay the bills in this situation, for me, I would go there. I would find something to give me peace of mind, keeping my dreams alive, because we all need to have that dream. So make it your priority to get some peace, to find a way, to find a job, part-time, whatever you would do, and then spend a little time dreaming, because it's going to fuel everything you do if you feel like there's possibility out there. That's great advice. And again, it goes back to, if you have the time now, if you find yourself no longer commuting, you're not commuting to work anymore, take that half hour, or if you live in Los Angeles like I do, that hour and a half, and use that time to explore. I love the idea that, where you write everything down and you're looking at different options to find the one that speaks to you. Because I think that's the other part of it too, is sometimes people are afraid to go there because they're afraid they might not like it. But what you're saying is, well, think about it, try a few different things, take a sample of everything that's out there and see what makes the most sense for you. Yeah, see how it feels. What's used to feeling, because we've been racing, we've been just going round and round and climbing up. And I don't think we've felt in a long time. And now we're feeling some things that are unsettling and not very good to feel. But we're feeling. And as much as deep as we feel the things that are frightening to us now, if we try to feel the opposite of how something that excites us feels when we look at it and we try to think of possibility,
it's magical. It will just bring you peace, and that's all we want. That's all we want, peace. It's all I wanted for a long time, and I didn't even know I was missing it until I started to see something that made me feel like, and what they say is so true. Just give. If you give a little, if you can't afford to give a lot of time or money, if you give a little, it just makes a difference in here, right?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Now, looking at the future, I would like to think if we could see ahead, 6 months, a year, 2 years, what are some of the things that you foresee in our society happening that we might not have today? And let's, assume that COVID and everything at a certain point we will overcome. What do you predict for the future?
I can't predict. I hope that some of the compassion, the empathy that we see continues. And I hope that some of the discord and some of the fear, which is what it is, and some of the uncertainty and some of the negative stuff that's mixed in finds peace, and we don't lose hope, and that we start or continue talking to each other and listening to each other's stories. Because if I don't know where you've been and you don't know where I've been, then I don't know how we can walk together. We have to let each other in. We have to breathe. And I just pray that we stay open, that we look in each other's eyes again. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're wearing masks and we have to look at each other in the eye.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. Like we've lost this part of that connection, but you're right. We still have that eye contact, and you can't there's so much that's conveyed in the eyes, isn't there?
Yes. And we're really seeing it because you can barely make out a smile. You are looking, because the eyes can smile and the eyes can tear up and the eyes can look worried. And that's the only place that we can see emotion or communication. And it's just, I don't think that that's lost on us, even if we don't say it out loud. I think there's something that is resonating with that, looking each other in the eye. And I just pray that we continue to do that no matter what we have to go through.
Absolutely. Can you hold up your book again?
Yeah.
There we go. The book is called Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas: How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning, by Genevieve Piturro. And I let everybody know where they can find it. Your website.
Yeah, Amazon.
Social.
Yeah.
Available everywhere, right? Is it?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. And what's your website? Can you give us the URL?
Yes, it's GenevievePiturro.com. Easy. And then, of course, pajamaprogram.org.
And people can go there can they donate pajamas? How does that work? If people want to get involved?
They can write to me and I can make an introduction, or they can just go to pajamaprogram.org and find out more and contact our staff there. And we're nationwide, so there's lots to do and lots of chapters everywhere. And it's beautiful time to give, whatever it is, whether it's your time or your, or just an ear. Even an ear is better than talking.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Genevieve, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you spending time with us on Books That Make You.
Oh, Desiree, thank you so much.
You bet. And everybody else, thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to pick up a copy of Genevieve's book. And also make sure that you check out our website, booksthatmakeyou.com. You can also follow us. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. And don't forget, sign up for the newsletter. We do a monthly newsletter, and we're always giving away books and telling you about the latest bookish news and authors and events and things that are going on in the literary world. Once again, my friends, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The executive producer for Books That Make You is Desiree Duffy. Produced and sound mastered by Phil Giangrande. Engineering by Dave Nabox. Social media and promotion by Bree Sweeter. For more, visit booksthatmakeyou.com.